It's all led up to this. Words cannot even describe what I felt watching the final moments of this episode, of this season. But I was fully captivated by the insanity of everything that unraveled. The Owl House Season 2 comes to a close with King's Tide, an episode that is an all-timer in Disney animated history. As the Day of Unity finally arrives, Luz has a rematch with Emperor Belos, and the Collector is finally freed from his prison. There is so much to unpack, and we've been working around the clock to get this breakdown out to you guys as soon as possible. So before we dive in, I want to let you guys know that with Owl House and Amphibia over, Owl House having 3 specials on the way, we're putting our best foots forward to level up our content across the board. And considering the events of this episode definitely let everything in a spot that reminds fans of Amphibia, I'll make a video going as in-depth as possible, breaking down the differences and similarities between Owl House and Amphibia, and all you guys gotta do is check out today's sponsor and click the link in the description, because it really helps out the channel. That being said, thank you to Likewise for sponsoring this video. A daily struggle of mine is figuring out what the hell I want to watch on TV. There's just so many streaming services now that I'm overwhelmed by choice. Not to mention, a lot of shows and movies jump from one place to another, like a game of hot potato. That's why I'm so grateful for Likewise TV. Likewise TV is a personalized streaming hub that helps me find what I want to watch and where I need to watch it. If a show or movie is available to stream, you can see exactly what it's on. Everything is now in one place, cutting down time on browsing and taking you directly to the good stuff. Likewise TV merges all of the TV shows and movies I'm eager to see into one perfect watch list. If I find something I want to check out on any streaming service, I can click save and it goes right to my list. And when I'm ready to watch something, it opens the streaming service it's on in an instant. Not to mention the recommendation game is insane. Instead of just forcing whatever new release down my throat, like all the streaming services, Likewise gives me suggestions based on what I actually like, though you can still see what's coming and going on every service. Likewise TV also makes it a breeze to share recommendations with friends and family, and they can share their recommendations too. To see what crazy shows and movies I'm keeping up with, click the link in the description and follow me on Likewise. It's free, a huge time saver, and frankly, something I always wanted. Not to mention, it helps the channel out in a really big way. Thanks again to Likewise for sponsoring the video. We open with King dreaming once more in the in-between realm, lingering on a shot of the medallion on his collar, because as we learn later in this episode, it's going to be instrumental in playing one of the Collector's favorite games, hide and seek. The Collector confronts Belos for not upholding his end of the bargain, not setting him free on the Day of Unity, and emphasizing that Belos pinky swore. And as we see later, pinky promises are everything when it comes to dealing with this chaotic god. King scoffs at Belos' clear facade, something that the Collector overhears, his overwhelming loneliness prompting an aggressive reaction, startling King and causing him to wake up on the airship with Willow and the rest of the gang. We see that Flapjack, Ghost, and Camo, that's my name for Ghost's Palisman, are all cuddled up for warmth and napping, calling to mind Luz falling asleep with the Palisman earlier in the season, back in much simpler times. On rewatch, it also reminds us of the possibility that the kids are now separated from their familiars, stranded in another world. We also have Gus inspecting Adrian's magic amplification earring, which he used to stabilize and strengthen spells back in Labyrinth Runners. Later, Gus uses this tool to keep Belos at bay by tormenting the Emperor with his own memories. This strategy results in Gus paying the price of witnessing those memories himself. Tensions rise within the group as everyone's on edge, wanting to rescue Luz as soon as possible. But the Palisman cutely smooth things over by reminding them that they're just angry. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is how human beings are ultimately still just animals at the end of the day, which means we get a little feisty when our bellies get rumbling, which is what these adorable magical critters picked up on here. Very cute. This moment just had wholesome Pokemon energy. The origins of Amity's nickname comes to light as Alador whips up some abomination mittens for his daughter, illustrating how her dad was always looking out for his children, even when the business was stealing all of his time away from them. Thanks, old Dahlia, you fucking prick. Willow tells King there's always room to help, you just gotta wait for the right opportunity, alluding to King freeing the Collector later in the climax of the season finale. All of the witches on the Boiling Isles are gathered at the head of the Titan, leading to Belos finally giving the public an explanation on what the Day of Unity exactly is. And it's a different pitch from what he bestowed upon the Coven Heads. The Unity in question is the supposed synchronization of the Titan's power and the eclipse, to which Belos claims will be used to wipe out wild magic as a whole, when in reality, it's quite the opposite. Those with sigils are the ones eradicated from existence, while the imprisoned wild witches are presumably set to be executed at the Conformatorium. Eda gives her body one last good stretch, which leads to her pulling out her arm, a running gag throughout the entire series so far that pays off big time later in this episode as Raine severs Eda's arm off to save her life. Eda cloaks herself as Raine and looks back to see her Hexside peers in their youth. Perry, Bump, Darius, Alador, Odalia, and front and center, her sister Lilith, and the love of her life, Raine Whispers. This was a clear homage to a very common trope in shonen, where a character glances at the protagonist and either sees a younger version of said protags, or characters from their own youth. Off the top of my head, I know Naruto did this a few times actually. Just gotta say, I also adore the detail of Eda's sharp tooth sticking out through the cloaking spell. It looks sick. Before initiating the draining spell, Belos has already accounted for the possibility of Raine and Eda's old switcheroo, and has one of his own up his sleeve. Rearranging the placement of the Coven Heads so that Adrian and Terra are beside Eda instead of Darius and Eberwolf. Adrian still seems to be losing sleep, continuously haunted by whatever tragic backstory he relived thanks to Gus. I'd like to think Adrian's placement wasn't just so Eda would be surrounded by two of the heads most loyal to him, including one who tormented Eda and Raine, but because of Adrian's role as head of the Illusion Coven, Belos was basically giving Eda the finger, letting her know he sees right through her sham. Belos initiates the draining spell, causing everyone's sigils to glow bright yellow, as he dips and heads back into the Titan's skull. This man was really just going to kill them all and peace out, not even checking to see the valley of corpses that would have been left. Terrible. Of course, Belos screws over the Collector with the revelation that the tablet sealing the Collector requires a drop of Titan's blood in order to set him free. Alas, Belos, aka Philip, only has enough for one trip, but he was never going to free the Collector. We Ben knew. I also love how Belos finally gets his own makeover, taking off his cloak to reveal his 1600s clothing underneath, putting his hair up in the ponytail, and I just noticed a simplified version of the old Golden Guard sigil on Philip's jacket, the same sigil that appears on the Gracefield welcome sign. The dude also removes the moldy green scar on his face, so I guess he was just keeping that around for sympathy, although it apparently grew back shortly after. But it's giving me Amon vibes for real. Kikimora brings Luz to Philip, proposing to be his new right hand, but Philip shuts it down, stating he'd rather cut off his whole arm. Another allusion to Eda's fate in this episode. And to add insult to injury, the dickhead tells Kiki to find a hole to wither away in. Jeez! We also discover the source of Belos' insanely overpowered abilities. It's more than just tech and palisman souls, but he also learned magic that no one else beholds aside from the Collector. Magic that Philip fears falling to anyone else's hands, which is why he refuses to release the Collector, dropping the tablet. This obviously means that Luz, another human, learning the magic of a god, is definitely in the cards for Season 3. Speaking of Luz, Philip is well aware that Kikimora got duped and wants to reason with Luz. However, our girl is ready to throw hands. Also, with the use of her invisibility glyph right here, coupled with the nature of the Collector and the games they play, and the purpose of King's Collar, I think this combination glyph was actually, all this time, setting up. The gang approaches the Day of Unity, but faces off against the feds, giving us a quick Huntlow moment as Willow saves Hunter from falling to his death. Ironic, given the implications that Belos probably dropped a few Golden Guards to their own death. However, this is where everything starts to go wrong. The ship gets shot down, Lilith and Raine get busted, and although Eda's role in the plan to stop the Day of Unity works, Terra shuts down the operation real quick, Adrian unraveling the cloaking spell shortly after. This triggers Eberwolf's fight or flight, and the homie chooses to fight. The head of the construction coven swings for Eberwolf, but Eber lands on the hammer and sticks some spiders onto the lad. Darius switches into abomination mode, cornering the head of the potion coven, while Eberwolf is yanked off by the four-armed witch of the Oracle Coven. The potion dude apparently has some stanky acid breath, which Darius evades and counters, going for the kill, but just slicing off a bit of Potion Bro's top hat. However, the healing head plays the hostage card and effortlessly throws a knife towards a pinned down Eberwolf, but stops the blade from slitting his throat in order to get Darius to stop as well, conveying that Darius and Eberwolf's bond goes deeper than what the show could afford to show us. Man, I wish we got that full season 3. The Cats' plans are foiled as Raine is forced into taking their proper place, putting the draining spell back on track. Elsewhere, Luz and Philip continue to clash, Philip impressed by Luz's progress, as he wasn't aware she was already dabbling in combinations, but believes she's years off from actually beating him in a duel. After restraining Luz and claiming he just wants to help, not wanting to see another human life destroyed by the demon realm, referring to his late brother, that he felt he had to kill after falling in love with a witch, Luz calls out Philip's hypocrisy, losing his humanity with the amount of wrongdoings he's committed against witches, causing Philip to begin petrifying Luz out of spite. Panicked, Luz scans the room for anything to use to her advantage, when she notices one of the Belos gloves has a sigil stamper on it. Luz then argues something that I'm sure a lot of viewers were thinking at one point or another. If Philip returns to the human realm now, he'll be shell-shocked by how much society has progressed. Luz even says, witch hunter generals aren't exactly a thing anymore, plus like, sheltered worldview, dude. There are other things going on in the world even back then. Belos is going to sound and look delusional if he came back to Earth spouting nonsense about witches and magic.
Don't worry, Pops. We're almost to your room.
Luz proposes that she'll help be Philip's modern-day guide around Earth in exchange for the lives of her loved ones to be spared, playing his game of manipulation right down to calling him by his actual name, something she knows will sway him in her direction. And if you look closely, after Luz says, "I'm not offering anything," and adjusts in a way to look like she's hurt and trying to keep balance, she's actually placed herself in the perfect position to slip the glove on and place an invisibility glyph. Goated! And right before she ends up looking like Anne Boonchoy, Philip agrees to her conditions, shaking on it so he'll be a man of his word. But already knowing she can't trust him for shit, she gets the jump on Philip and places the invisible glove on him, branding him with a sigil and making him a victim of the Day of Unity. Goated! The eclipse approaches the sun as the witches begin to fade under the draining spell's effects. Tara's dumbass realizes she's not getting a paradise, and when Raine nods their head, no, something about the way they're drawn here just reminds me of Goku, which I find neat. But this would be a good point for a breather and dive into our final fan spotlight for the season. But you know, we got so many submissions in the last week that I want to encourage you guys to keep submitting fan art to us at Roundtable Vids on Twitter and Instagram, because we'll try to do some spotlights here and there in the gap until season 3, as we have other Owl House videos in the works. Maybe not every Owl House video, but I think there are some where a spotlight makes sense. So if you don't see yours in this one, it just means we might be saving it for later. Anyways, hit it!
Wanted to fulfill their greatest desire. So I led them to the fuse, and they lit the fire. Soon the Day of Unity begins, and it will end their fun. While mine, of course, will had only just begun.
Luz is painfully unaware that Philip can't stop the draining spell, as it's reliant on the eclipse itself, and the Emperor loses complete control, overwhelmed by the Palisman souls he tried to keep at bay, transforming to the same envy-like monster that was pursuing Luz and Hunter in Hollow Mind. King seems to be dealing with a concussion-like injury after the crash, going in and out of consciousness as we see Alador fend off the Abomatons while sending Willow, Gus, Hunter, and Amity off to save everyone, handing Amity the Abomaton controller. Amity doesn't want this to be goodbye, but little does she know, she's about to be far, far away from her dad. Hunter immediately heads for Darius, struggling to wake him up, while Amity and Willow recover Eda, shutting down the Abomatons in the process. Finally, King wakes up for good, as everyone heads towards Luz and Philip. Philip continuously lunges at Luz, relentlessly attacking until the rest of the squad arrives. Willow momentarily neutralizes some of her vines. But of course, this isn't enough to stop him, so Gus decides to put both of them through hell with what we talked about earlier, trapping Philip in his own memories. Featuring the portraits we saw in Hollow Mind, Philip being introduced to his brother's lover, a witch, Philip killing his brother in cold blood, disposing of the body. Though I believe this is actually one of the Grimwalker memories, so this could go to show that Philip does hold some self-resentments and self-inflicted trauma for all the replicas he's murked. All of this was painful for Philip, and although he plays it off as cold and calculated, he isn't proud of what he did to his brother at all. But as he thinks Luz is too far gone, he thought the same of his sibling. Now, we have one of the most divisive parts of the episode due to a subtitling error, as Philip tries to play the sympathy card on Hunter until he spots Flapjack. Now, the subtitles here claim Belos snarls, "Kill him!" But most viewers heard and believed this line to be Caleb, which is believed to be the name of Belos' brother that Hunter is a clone of. Hunter used this name as a cover in any sport in a storm, due to Flapjack's suggestion, Flapjack being the brother's talisman, as seen in yesterday's lie. Now, guys, come on, subtitles have been wrong before. Why would we hear the name Caleb and what checks out to be obvious foreshadowing, and for Belos, the guy who would recognize his brother's talisman, to say something that sounds like Caleb, but turns out to be something else entirely? Look, it's okay if you choose to be wrong and feel like a silly goose in 6 months to a year, when it's confirmed in one of the season 3 episodes. But if you truly think it's kill him, which barely makes any sense, then this is your Get Out of Clowntown free card. Please take it. He definitely was reminded of his brother. So anyways, yeah, Belos goes apeshit. King and Kikimora have a brief exchange, where Kiki reveals she listened in on many of Belos' conversations with the Collector, that Belos does not know how to stop the draining spell, only the Collector does. Belos feared the Collector and his power, because the Collector is neither witch nor demon, but a child of the stars, a celestial being. Kikimora takes King to the Golden Guard graveyard, influenced by the Hollow Knight resting grounds, where the tablet of the Collector fell. King summons the Collector, but again, the Collector can't see him, as King's medallion keeps him hidden in plain sight. Once King removes the collar, however, the Collector remarks that he always wanted to play with him, but his dad kept him hidden. More like, kept him protected, as we already know that the Collector is a sadistic chode who relishes in the destruction of others, and is likely the one responsible for wiping out all the Titans. Playing with King sounds like it'll end with killing King. King proposes a game better than hide and seek, the Owl House!
He said it! He said it!
Yeah, King does his best just to get the Collector to buy into the idea that the status quo is a game they can play, but he's in store for a rude awakening. With a pinky promise, he hooks the Collector out of the stone tablet as it begins to shatter, just like the shattered tablet the Titan Trappers had in Edge of the World, implying the Collector was freed and sealed again, at least one other time before this one. And it also implies this tablet could still be functional if restored like the other. Eda begins to perish from the curse working in tandem with the draining spell before Raine comes in clutch and de-arms her.
Get it? Disarm!
However, Raine faints shortly after. I don't think they're dead, they're just resting. The Collector breaks free from his prison and unravels out of King's hand with a blinding light, instantly joining the battle against Philip as he stops his attack with a single pinch. What immediately drew my attention here, within this pretty dope design, was the Collector's glowing red eyes. The same red glow found in Belos' magic, which we now know came from the Collector. Philip immediately folds and tries to wiggle his way out of the situation by backtracking on his betrayal.
You're free, just as promised. Oh, don't kill me.
But the Collector's not having it, claiming he's not mad, but offering a game of tag. And we get a taste of the celestial power as the Collector spins Belos in by manipulating his body, which looks kinda goopy, just like when Belos takes his body around. Again, the same type of magic. But then the Collector just does the biggest mic drop by flicking Belos like a booger, sending the ass hat flying across the room and slamming right into the top of the door at full speed, presumably killing Belos as we know it, reducing his remains to a magical goopy essence. Belos clearly isn't gone for good, given some upcoming moments, but I think we may have seen the last of him in his humanoid form. And everyone is just speechless to see the big bad bodied before their very eyes with a single movement. New villain curb-stopping old villain to show how powerful they are is definitely another big trope in storytelling. Again, especially anime. And even though I had a feeling Belos wouldn't make it out of this episode alive, I just wasn't expecting this. The Collector observes that the squad looks slow too.
What do you mean by that?
And offers to give them a head start, but King reminds them of their deal, with everyone else catching on to the gambit and playing along. Aside from Hunter kinda, who doesn't even have it in him to lie, this boy is just exhausted, squealing and nodding his head. And this is where the Collector goes from God tier to just super God tier, I don't know. This guy is playing on creative mode, you feel me? Because he sees how the sun and moon are lined up, enhances his vision like his eyes are a pair of binoculars, and then drags the moon over like the world is his touchscreen. But then it keeps going. This episode took a twist I just could not see coming, as he decides to reboot the map as a whole, exclaiming if they're going to play Owl House, then they're going to need an Owl House. Bro, King didn't even explain the rules, what? The demigod reconstructs reality as we know it in the demon realm, shaping it into his own wonderland that'll be unveiled in season 3. The kids rush towards a portal door, but Hunter struggles to run past his uncle's remains, forcing himself to truck through. But some Philip goop lands right on his shoulder. The portal to Connecticut lies before them, but Luz uses plant glyphs to hold the portal down long enough to let her friends run through, intending to stay behind in order to find Eda, but promising to come back to them. However, King isn't letting Luz sacrifice herself this time, and uses his sonic waves to push them all through the portal, staying behind in her place. I'm so lucky I had you as a big sister, got me choked up, man. The gang is thrown outside the portal and finds themselves outside the abandoned home, which at this point, I'm convinced was the home of Philip and Caleb Wittebane. The demon realm is out of their reach. They're all stranded on Earth. Gus breaks down as no one can comprehend what just happened, what they just saw, and the ambiguous fates of everyone they know and love. Behold the damn presses! Amphibia and Owl House are alluded to be in the same universe? As we cut to the Noceda household, Camilla's iPad is open on a news article of Anne, the headline reading, "Girl Lost in Frogland, Hoax?" Of course referencing Anne, Sasha, and Marcy's disappearance in Amphibia for half a year, and the subsequent invasion in Los Angeles, led by King Andreas. An invasion that was shown in the time skip epilogue to become a speculated hoax over the years. So if the timeline adds up, the end of the Owl House Season 2 takes place after the Amphibia series finale, before its time skip of course, and people, if not the government itself, are already trying to declare the invasion as a hoax. If you haven't already, watch Amphibia, y'all. It's great. Don't deprive yourself of more quality entertainment, please. Not gonna lie though, this Anne cameo made me crack up because they just used her model sheet, no art style change or anything. Anyways, Camilla and V find Luz and company at the doorstep. Yay! Starting the next season on Earth, Amphibia and Owl House continue to have different approaches to similar plot points. I personally love it. It makes these two sister shows feel like, well, sister shows. The credits for this episode featured the door of the abandoned home open during a rainstorm. but some Philip goop falls from above, with the goop falling on the doorknob and closing the door, showing that this essence is alive in some way, and Philip will likely have the ability of possessing other people in Season 3. Philip has made it back home after all. And that's a wrap for the Owl House Season 2. As always, these are just our thoughts and we want to know what you guys think. How did you react to this major jaw-dropping episode? What are your thoughts on the Collector, his definition of an owl house, and where the series could go from here? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and keep the conversation going by giving us a follow at Roundtable Vids and at OstricVox on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to check out Toon Drip, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!